Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Oxygen Roundtable. My name is Gage Oxley, and I'm the showrunner of A Series of Light. And joined with me on this roundtable is Harley Matthews, the first AD intimacy coordinator extraordinaire, and Eleanor Hodson, producer, first AD, art director, lighting designer, and pretty much everything else, right? Comedy queen, that's one we're missing.
It's true, all the titles.
Now, obviously, we'd love to have been able to do this in person, but at the time of recording, we are currently still in lockdown. 1 year on, exactly to the day since we started shooting the last episode of A Series of Light, which we started a year ago today and got locked down on. Today we're going to be looking through our show, A Series of Light, which is available on Amazon Prime in the UK and US. It's attracted 5 million people, which is unbelievable to say. I mean, Eleanor, when we started, did you ever imagine 5 million people watching the show?
No, I didn't imagine one person watching it. Not because it was bad, just because it's like I didn't think so many people would see it.
It is bizarre to think that 5 million households have seen the show. But we're going to be breaking down the series. We're going to be watching the show. And I think for all three of us, actually, this is the first time we've seen it since its release back in July. So it's going to be fun. We're going to be breaking things down, talking about how we did certain things, tales from behind the scenes, and stuff like that. So come along with us on this ACE journey. Okay, so Harley Matthews, you came from Northern Film School, right? That's kind of where we crossed paths. Do you feel like film school is important? Do you see your career being benefited solely because of film school?
I think there's like no clear-cut path to like start in the film industry. Like whatever you think's going to be better for you. Like the only reason I went is to make contacts. Like I'm from a small village where there's no film going off whatsoever. Sheffield's not known for its film, so that's the only reason I went, just to meet people that also wanted to make film, and that's what I did.
Good, that's fantastic. And obviously we got to meet you, so I'm glad you did go to film school, because otherwise we probably might not have met. Eleanor, how about you? So you obviously on our sets have been pivotal for the last number of years, including on Pulse and Wretched Things, but on this being the first television show that we've done, you were a producer along with Sean Carey, but you were also a first AD in part, lighting designer, art director. You kind of swept.
I just like to I get around.
Around. And how was that for you? Like, what was that process like?
I loved it. I just love working on films. I love working on set, and I love working with other people. So it's sort of ideal because I'm just in love with the process. So stick me anywhere, and I'll work out what to do. And that's like my favorite thing. Obviously my main role has been doing lights and doing sort of the art directing, and that I do love that, and I'm very proud of. Sort of, I feel like you can see my progress as the lighting designer in our like catalogue, not just Series of Light, but Wretched Things is when I like started really doing lights, and I feel like you can see sort of my like sort of personal progress, to be 100%. Selfish watching it. But yeah, and I do. I love working with Oxygen because I just get to dip my fingers everywhere. I don't have one specific thing to do. Where did you start? Because you sort of started quite early on, I think you said.
Yeah, I mean, I've wanted to be a filmmaker or at least a writer director since I was about 8. So this is something that's kind of been a long time coming, and a lot of work and a lot of cameras and running around doing stuff with friends, which is, even though this is a professional experience, it is still kind of taking that running around with friends and doing it. So yeah, I mean, I didn't go to film school either. I just went straight into it. And I work at the festival, so at the Indies Festival, that's kind of something that I've worked at with Leeds Young Film since I was about 17, 18, but I've been volunteering there since I was 8. So yeah, it's kind of been a lot of hard work, self-employed work, freelance work, which obviously right now in the position we're in is drying up. So yeah, this has been nice to kind of have something happening in this time.
And a lot of your previous work revolves around similar themes to the show, but I just wanted to know, when did you conceive the idea for the show?
Oh, that's a very good question. I would say that realistically, it kind of came about initially as just one short film. The first episode, which we're about to watch, was initially just going to be one short film, green light, and it then snowballed into this thing of, well, actually, let's keep on doing it, because green light, we shot it in, realistically, it was one afternoon with like 3 crew members in one room with one actor, and that was super easy. And I think, I'm sure a lot of people watching this will feel the same way of, I just want to create stuff. I just want to be making things and being on set with people. And that's kind of where the idea came from me, was I just want to be on set making something, like regardless of what it actually is and how difficult it might be. And so that started with green light, and then I couldn't stop. And so then I carried on writing. I wrote red light while we were still in the pre-production for green light. And then white light when we're in the post-production of green light. It was like, it was just constantly kind of creating something, like whatever the next one would be. So at the time of starting, we had no idea it was going to be a series. And we didn't even know how long the episodes were going to be, how many episodes they were going to be. And that's, I guess, the beauty of an anthology show, because realistically we could have done 20 episodes and then done. Like, we can keep on adding to it if we wanted to. But yeah, we ended it with 6. We thought 6 was enough. But obviously from it has come a second season, which has been commissioned, and this book, a series of like manuscripts with stuff in it. So if anyone wants to get that, it's on Amazon. Plugging that. I'm like RuPaul, aren't I? I'm like, available now on Amazon. But yeah, I think that's kind of where the idea came about. It was just, we wanted to tell stories that are important, and we wanted to just have fun doing it. Let us start with green light. So green light, we filmed this in October 2019, which feels like a lifetime ago. That's nearly 2 years ago already, which is incredible. Mental. Now this was, as I said, just meant to be a short film, on a standalone short film. We had one actor, Jack Pye, in one room with 3 crew members, and that was me, Eleanor, and Devon, our sound engineer. So it was really, really quite tight knit. And I think, even though when we're watching it, you'll be able to see where kind of the tight knit small crew came from, I think overall the production value is good, is solid.
I remember that one shot took so long to film. That literally, that 10-second shot.
14 takes in the end.
Yeah, it took such a long time, and I can't. Why did it take so long? I can't remember.
Because I was on camera. That's why it took so long.
Because I remember there was so many times they're like, "Oh, I've gone out of focus." At one point, you like tripped.
Yeah, because the thing is, the whole point was we were following up with like all of the the shoes and the clothes and stuff on the floor. It was like a minefield when I was like on the camera. Bearing in mind, I'm not a camera operator, but on this I was. And Harley, I've got a question for you about that, because obviously, even though you weren't on this set, you can still talk about it from an intimacy point of view. Obviously, that shot in itself was, even though there's no kind of, we don't see anything, it is kind of a potentially intimate thing for an actor to have to do. What would be your kind of process for that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about their comfortability at the end of the day. So whatever I can do, or the people that have to be in the room can do to make Jack comfortable, is, I'm sure, exactly what we'd do. And it could be just walking it through so many times to the point where it becomes second nature, or just asking him if there's anything alternatively that we can do or provide that would make it easier for him to do something like that. Are they real Oxygen fan mail?
They are not real Oxygen fan mail. I wish they were. I had to handwrite all of them, and as you can see, there's loads of different styles, loads of different pens, loads of different fonts that I used, and different like cards and pieces of paper. All of them I created in about 2 hours, and I remember thinking, I'm going absolutely insane because I had them all like laid out on my table, and I was like, I look like an obsessed fan of this man called Sam. It was so much fun though. I love doing that. So yeah, I just want to talk about that shot there because again, that one took forever to do because we had to run him, grab the blue tap, and run back. And I remember vividly, all the focus was all over the place anyway. But one of the things was we used Jack in. Let me try and find the exact point. We used essentially his body to block a light when he ran back, because there was a light on the other side of the counter to illuminate him. There-ish is where there's a light on the left-hand side, and you can see that's where it's kind of illuminating his arm. Eleanor, how was the lighting for this?
The lighting for this episode, we had one light, and that was it, because obviously it was such an intimate like shoot, and I didn't want to have loads of lights everywhere, and especially because the camera is so handheld. Not only handheld, but you're like moving so much, and it was already hard enough to do anyway, so I didn't want to have loads of lights everywhere. So we had practicals, and then we had one light that I was just moving around to be as natural as possible. So for this one, it was, the counter was like here, and he was on this side of the counter, and the light was here, just directly on him, just to light him up a bit. So it was more of a struggle making sure that it wasn't in shot, because obviously we needed at least one light. But yeah, I think we did well to not get it in shot, to be fair. We had to get a bit creative though, like you say, using Jack as a human shield.
Yeah, but that's some of the things that you have to do. Like if, for example, we needed a light on that side for earlier on in the shot when he runs back, and also if we just keep on playing it, so like when he comes back here, we needed that light on him, but there was no way where we couldn't see it without using him as like a, as you say, human shield. Bless him. Yeah, that was just one of the things where, again, this was the first day of, that was the only day of filming. It was the first thing we'd filmed in a long while, and the very first card that we'd used corrupted with all of the footage. It was like, so this is how it starts. This is how the entire thing starts. But we, blasted through it. We, I had a moment of like crying and I was like, I was so angry with myself, because obviously it's like, there was no issue, there was no like error that was made, there was no human mistake. It was literally just it corrupted. But these things happen, and I think it's a testament to show that.
And in a way, we're lucky that it was this shot.
Yes.
That we had backup of. Like, at least it wasn't one of the ones that took us ages to do.
How about you, Harley? Because obviously you've worked on other things outside of Oxygen. Have you ever had an experience where you kind of lost footage, or the day is just not going well and you've had to kind of push through? And what was that?
Not one like that, but basically any time I've shot on film, you just stay up all night worrying if you actually got the shot. And yeah, nothing where it's gone that wrong, but
a lot of the films throughout the series are quite digital. There's a lot of content on laptops and screens. All of them have to be created. And I remember this one was one that I suddenly realized, oh God, we don't have like this is basically a knockoff of TMZ. We don't have like one of those, and I had to like whip it up dead quick. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It looks pretty much like TMZ. It looks okay. So that was Greenlight.
I love Greenlight. I love Greenlight. It does have a place in my heart.
No, I wouldn't have expected it to be just 3 people. I think you did a really good job with like what you had.
Oh.
And I think all the episodes have like that element of like guerrilla style filmmaking where it's, you know, we haven't really, well, we don't have a budget really. But I think the things that we're producing all have a very good standard to uphold.
So next up, we've got Red Light, which we had upped our crew members. We doubled it from 3 to 6. So let's have a look at this. But again, very similar. 1 room, 2 actors. That's pretty much it. I want to talk a little bit about the location. So one of the primary things that we got with this was the hotel. Obviously, hotels are expensive and bloody difficult to film in because you've got to get so many permissions, and especially for a film where someone dies, difficult.
I know I've never felt like limited in that we shoot on location. I think it's good, and it definitely probably helps the actors as well get sort of in their role, obviously, because there's certain things that they don't have to pretend.
Yeah,
they can like, because they're there in like real life, but in real life, you know what I mean, it's fiction, you know what I mean.
But I get what you mean, and obviously with like with us being so low budget, we I mean, we shot this entire series on about 4,000 to 5,000 cash money, and then we had a lot of in-kind sponsorship and in-kind stuff like the hotel, for example, which was given to us for free, which would have cost money. But the fact that we could then have this as not only a location but also accommodation for our actors and storage for our equipment across 3 days was like, you know, that saved us as a whole about £1,000. And so I think that's the one thing that I'd recommend is look at what you actually need to get and seek the people who you can get it from and ask them to give you that in kind, rather than seeking budget or money or financial grants or finance in whole. Ask for the things that you need instead.
Yeah, and I do think that like that's good advice for like young people wanting to become filmmakers or wanting to make their own films or working with no budget but having a concept that you don't necessarily need all the big things that they like tell you that you need.
And one of the issues with this scene, with filming it in the location, is at the time of filming this, the cleaning staff were doing the rounds on the floor of the hotel, and in between, poor Jake stripping, which was obviously quite, you know, he was more than comfortable with it, but it was like we'd rather not have to keep on doing it over and over and over. There was just this obnoxiously loud trolley with glasses, I think, that was just rattling all the time. We had to keep on stopping it, and eventually we did get there. I love that shot too.
I love that. It does look so good. It looks so warm and inviting, which is so nice because the actual film itself is so like stressful.
Yes, it is. It is. And if you want to join a conversation with the series of light, well, one of the series of light color graders, Liam Watson, he is doing a session at the Indies Film Festival. It's the Saturday, the 3rd of April, about 4 o'clock-ish, 4:30. Obviously, you can watch it anytime after that. Now, I want to talk about cocaine because obviously it's not cocaine. We had to make sure it was safe for our actors to digest and snort because we see it happening actually on camera. And in the end, we used it was this kind of very nice vegan bulk powder. So it's like kind of protein powder. It's stuff that you usually put in like shakes or drinks, or I think you can put it kind of pretty much anywhere, including up your nose, which was great, and it looks very much like cocaine. Oh God.
The horrible brown water coming out of his mouth.
I forgot how visceral that was, you know. I forgot how difficult to watch that was. And I've got an interesting point about that bile. Our actor, Dan, who unfortunately just passed away there, not the actor, the character, he's a vegan and very prominent vegan activist. And so I remember thinking, okay, well, let's try and make sure we can, you know, he's comfortable not only in the scene but as a human as well. I remember we moved heaven and earth to make sure that the bile that was used in his mouth and the blood that we see later on, spoilers, were all vegan friendly. How do you build tension in cinema? Because obviously watching this, you are kind of pretty much hopefully on the edge of your seat. It's quite an exhausting watch because you're kind of thinking what's going to happen next. How do you build tension in cinema? Like, what's some of your techniques?
I think it comes naturally with the scene and what like the context is. Like, just by human nature, it's going to be very difficult to watch something that's happening on screen. But you can use visual cues or audio tracks, and even if it's silence, it speaks 1,000 words. There's all manner of different things that go into the scene.
I think it tells you a lot about the character that he's only taking what he's earned.
I look that it was so well done.
I'm so proud of it. Now, the way we did that, obviously, we did not slit someone's wrists, and that is actually Dan's, you know, real hands. You know, we didn't use like a body. And I feel like you might be able to just see it when he lifts his hand up. Let me just see. I'm pretty sure there is a little giveaway. No, it's seamless. Basically, what happened? So that wound was already there. So our prosthetics artist Sarah Gidley already designed that kind of thing on his hand that Dan then laid out. When Callum or Jake lifted up the hand to then slit it, he used his front hand to cover where the wound was as he goes in.
I like how the camera doesn't like linger on it as well. It's just like you can see it, and like it's very sort of naturally done.
It is, yeah. And then we go for the second wrist. I think this one's even worse. And we did the exact same thing here where it's kind of revealed by his hand. Yeah, this one was... and then the first time we were out of the room. And
I love that. I love the song choice. I think it was Alex that suggested Red Light.
It was, yeah. He suggested Roxanne.
I love Red Light. It's weird because it's like, I think episode and concept wise, it's one of my favourites, but it's the one that I've seen the least.
Interesting. I mean, speaking about, I'll just mention this kind of briefly as well, because I do think it's really important. When we're talking about the entire series, there's a lot of characters that we don't know. Like, you know, we don't have the kind of experiences of, for example, a sex worker or an incel or whoever it might be that we cover. But that's not to say that we don't have people researching. And we, especially for this one, I spoke to so many sex workers and people who are in the sex kind of industries to try and gather as a responsible and realistic response to this story as possible. So here we go. Again, looking at how we did with Greenlight, using characters that are entirely on screens. This is again another instance where we have one character solely on a screen. And that bloody ice cream pot, that was the one thing I remember Jess, who's our continuity editor, really had to pay attention to where that spoon was. So all of this was crafted, was fake, fake done. It took so long. A lot of this film is entirely on one computer screen. So I had to, you know, just designing like stuff like that, for example. It's a lot of work. It's a whole lot of work. and kind of art direction as a whole?
Yeah, things like, I can't remember how many, I think we did 3-point lighting for this. And I wanted it to be as natural as possible, like very natural lighting. And obviously this is a very much contrast to earlier. But the nighttime shots were not nighttime shots. We blacked the windows out.
Yes.
So a lot of my day was spent retaping blackout curtains to the window. And we were using this stuff that you had to stick to the window. So we were like, a lot of it was like
sponging
down the window.
But actually, that's a really good point. So, this is a really good example of showing how you did the windows. For example, this shot that we're on now where it's bright and he's sat there, we keep playing it. There's a jump cut to then darkness. And that's a really, really key moment, because let's put the two side by side for a second. Those were shot like 10 seconds apart, not 10 seconds, it's like 10 minutes apart. Because basically what happened was the camera stayed where it was, Ollie stayed as still as he was, all of the stuff on the table was. And what I remember, there was me, you, and Poppy, who was our kind of grip, ran in behind him and just started taping up all of these blackout blinds. So that is actually the same time of day. It just shows exactly what lighting can do to a scene.
Yeah, I have to say the lighting for this one was, I don't know if it was the biggest challenge, but it was definitely the one that was it was like a pain, because it wasn't the lighting itself that was hard. The lighting itself is very natural.
And Ollie's fantastic. He's like, again, shows through very little conversation and dialogue. It's all kind of body language and tone. So this was White Light.
I like White Light. It's so simple.
It is.
But it is so effective.
Harley, obviously this episode in particular is about catfishes, but generally the entire series looks at kind of very difficult, tricky subjects. How important is it to look at stuff that might not be represented on screen?
Yeah, I think everything that Oxygen's been making is very provocative, and we take a lot of risks to get the things made that we do. But in doing so, I think we always try our best to represent everyone the best we can in a way that services the individual stories that we're telling.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think that's fair. And talking about stories that need telling, we're coming up to Starlight. Now, Starlight is one of the most kind of ambitious, I think, for series one at least, because it's set in the 90s. So we've got this period affecting it, because we couldn't show, for example, cars. We had to be really careful with like a lot of the technology that we show on screen. So it was tremendously difficult.
This one as well, you can also tell we've got a lot more ambitious, just into, like we were saying about locations. This is when we actually start to introduce more locations. And we also, I think Starlight is also the biggest crew we had up until this point.
It was, yeah. So let's start with this scene.
I remember getting so stressed about that mirror in the background as well. Just behind James, there's a mirror, and literally an inch, I am stood there with a light. Yeah. and so often Rose would be like, no, not Rose, Lily would be like, we can see you. I'd be like, sorry, right, I'll just move.
It was difficult. This is actually the only one that Rose wasn't a director of photography on. It was Faizan Raza, who is a fantastically talented director of photography,
really
and someone who you kind of recommended on, put in touch with Eleanor.
From back in the day. I've known him for ages.
And I think you can tell.
Really good.
I think you can tell, like, stylistically, this one is just so
very different. It's very more, because the thing about, because the Faizan does a lot of like, he does more artsy things, so you can definitely tell, and you can tell like just his style of working was very like, he knew his vision, that he's very like that, and so a lot of what he was doing, it's very like stylish.
Yeah,
and I think you can that definitely translates really well, and I do think that this one is a very it's very like different.
It is
the other ones, but I also like that because it's a lot more sort of dreamier. Does that make sense? Because obviously this, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I do think this one's a lot. It's very stylish, and
I think it's interesting because this one is less grounded in reality because it's not happening now. It's happening in a universe that was 20 years ago now, more. So is this our first exterior shot scene of the entire series?
Yeah.
Now remember that football. That football is a vintage Liverpool ball. It took me so long to find something like that.
Wow.
And this is also the location that a man who owns that building of houses, even though we'd got a permit to shoot on that part of the property, he did not like us being there. He came out
pleased.
all guns blazing, and we managed to calm him down. And eventually he was very supportive, thankfully.
He is also in the credits.
He's also in the credits.
I love the lighting in this bit.
This entire section, this is one that I really want to
so
talk about.
Pretty.
So this LSD tab, you'll be pleased to know it's not a real LSD tab. It is actually sugar paper, which I'd got printed, designed with those little kind of graphics. So it looks like a tab of LSD. The first two places where we'd gone to try and get them printed were not having any of it. They were like, "You're going to sell it on for money, and it's going to be fake." I was like, "I'm not. It's a film." I just want to hold on this shot in particular. All of the video games and board games and stuff. So obviously, all of those are very pivotal to the time. It sets up a vibe of that. All of that was bought in charity shops or vintage stores. I think all of the 90s props as a whole cost about 50 quid, which I appreciate is not nothing, but just tiny little things like that we never see them watch any of those videos or VHSs or play Mastermind, but it all adds to the kind of the universe that they're in. And so that's really important to try and craft. And that's a really good example of how your lighting, Eleanor, kind of, as you mentioned with the blue.
I love the transition, just the difference. Looks so nice. If I do say so myself.
You can see the blood dripping there. So that was something what we call live makeup. It's basically where the makeup has to be applied kind of at the point, so you can see it dribbling down. So we had the punch, we had James, who's the actor, kind of fly up. We paused, like no one moved. Our makeup artist ran in, dabbed the blood in, and his head went down, and it looked like it was dribbling. So it's just kind of clever cuts like that that really sold the effect. It's a very sad, melancholic episode, is this one. Harley, having worked on the sequel, having worked now on Firelight, can you see, how things have advanced, how we've grown as filmmakers and artists? And is that, what lessons did we learn from Starlight that you've taken from Firelight?
Absolutely. I was just about to say, I obviously wasn't there for the first episode, but just getting to see it and then seeing the finished product, even though it's not released yet, of the second one, I feel like we've done miles better job. And that's not just because I'm on it, but
oh well.
Holly was the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, when you compare it, the two differences, Harley wasn't there, Harley is there, so I'd take
true.
that.
You can't. That's why I really do love this series, because I think as filmmakers and as a team, we grew and improved so much throughout the series, and you can literally see it every episode gets technically better and better and better. It's just so like cool to watch, because it's like we all have kind of literally evidence that we can go back and watch of us improving our craft as a team and as individuals as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'd certainly say I've become a better writer and director, because, and it's as simple as just because I've been, you do it, right? You go out and you make something that's, it might not work. It might not be what you want it to end up being, but at least you can say you've made something, and you can say I worked on that. And it, I'm really so proud of the series as a whole, but Starlight in particular is one that I'm just
that was
madly in
such
love
a
with.
wedge of like where you can literally see such improvement.
Yeah,
It's so nice to see as well, because it's like it's just an example of like you try something and sometimes it doesn't work, and you can acknowledge why it doesn't work, and sometimes it will work, and
yeah,
you can do it and try new things, but you can see us not only getting better, but you can see us getting more ambitious as well. So like I said earlier, that we've got more locations now, and we had this one was our biggest, I think, first unit move.
yeah,
So we're getting more like, what's the word I'm thinking of, that we were getting more like just efficient as a crew,
yeah,
and being able to work in that capacity, rather than we weren't just turning up to set and doing our jobs. We were also like we were doing so much else that was just like enhancing our like skills, not just creatively but professionally as well. Because not only now did we have one call time to meet, we might have 2 or 3 call times to meet, and things like that. And also you're relying on people a lot more, because like now we have to rely on certain people with certain cars
yeah,
to get certain equipment to certain locations. So it's very like, you can really see us becoming more professional and more just efficient in the craft that we're putting into it, because you can really tell Starlight is things are really starting to come together now.
yeah. I think that is like the moment, isn't it? And I think what's especially nice is looking at the time scale again. I mean, we started off with Greenlight with 3 crew members and 1 actor on one day. That was in like middle of October. This is early December, so there's really not a lot of time between. And we obviously we shot Red Light early November, White Light late November, and then this one early December. It's there's not a lot of time for us to kind of almost learn from our lessons. We didn't have a lot of debrief time, but still we kind of, a lot of the crew on this, all of the crew actually are under the age of like 24, 23. All of us have either come straight from film school, we're currently in film school, or haven't yet attended film school, or just didn't attend film school. We're all people who are like just wanting to learn and wanting to grow.
Yeah,
and this is a
that's the best
perfect
way to learn.
opportunity. Yeah, and this is a
It's like,
perfect opportunity for us to develop that.
yeah, and that's why film school is so good for so many people. And it's part of the reason I didn't go to film school, is that it does get you working. So that's the reason I didn't go to film school, is because I sort of jumped straight in, because I'd built up contacts while I was in college, so I had the platform to jump right in. Whereas if you're someone that doesn't necessarily have all the contacts, because it's something you've like just decided to do, or where you live there isn't many, do you know what I mean? Like there's lots of reasons why someone hasn't built up contacts. So that it's one of those things, if you want to get working and meet people, that's another, it's just one of them things, it's sort of situational. But definitely consistent working, and working on a variety of things as well, is so important. That's what I was saying about like this series has been so beneficial. I know it's been beneficial for me, and I'm sure I speak for everyone in that, because it's so varied that we've not really had the opportunity to get stuck in one style and not be able to do anything else. We've been able to sort of find different niches.
That's a good point, because I mean, Starlight is a romance, White Light's probably a thriller, Red Light's more horror, and the next one that we're about to look at, Blacklight, is, I think, by far the most deranged, disturbing one. And this is the one that Harley started on.
Yeah, so as we mentioned before, it's all about taking risks, and this was the first of the series that I joined onto. So it was a warm welcome and a strange one to meet everyone involved, because up to that point I didn't really know what sort of films Oxygen made. So I just walked in straight at the deep end, and this film follows the journey of a very lonely individual that becomes obsessed with the persona of someone that he's not actually ever met, and his descent into a very seedy and cyber attack that becomes much more when he actually does meet her.
Yes, that was a
That's a really
great
good-
synopsis. God, I need you writing them for IMDb. That's great. Again, with being an intimacy coordinator, what would you say we did on this set, and what was important for cast and crew while on this set in terms of intimacy?
Yeah. So, like before, you have what's called a skeleton crew, where only the essential people that need to be there are there. Everyone is made aware of what is happening, and you do everything in your power to make it comfortable for those involved, especially the actors, and also crew, because some things you film, well, they are shocking to not only the audience but the people involved. So you have to make it abundantly clear that everyone is comfortable with making what we are, and in doing so, everyone is on board, and you end up making something that you set out to.
That's a really good point, actually, because I think a lot of people consider intimacy coordination as just being for the actors, when actually a lot of it is also for the crew, because crew members do have to be in the room to create that content, and you have no idea the impact or the history of that person that's in that room. You have no idea kind of what they might be triggered by or have experienced that could cause something to be uncovered. And mental health is something that everyone should be considerate of, but especially on a film set which is quite high stakes and quite kind of stressful. It is really important for us to keep tabs on people's kind of well-being throughout filming it, actors and crew. This was also one of my first in real life cameos. And here he is. My God. So this was a nightmare to film. There he is. The bear still. Can't believe I've still got him. He's definitely cursed. But this took so long to kind of get right. This kind of the pacing of it, both in editing, but also in filming as well. And I remember Devon had an absolute dream with the sound for this. There's so much kind of almost ASMR type noises. And if you want to listen out for Devon, who's doing a masterclass on sound and using a lot of a series of light for his talk, he's also talking on the Saturday, the 3rd of April, about 4:30 in a free session. So do check that out.
So those bars, it was almost like a balcony. So this was the bedroom area, and then straight down there was the kitchen. So I'm stood in the kitchen at the dining room table with a light shining straight up to the ceiling, and that's what that is. So it's all like nice open plan. But it was quite interesting from a lighting point of view, because I'd never done something that was like so like a layout that was so unusual like that. So I had to be a bit creative with where I could put the light.
And then the namesake of the film, Blacklight, comes into it, which is obviously a light in itself. And we used that quite vividly. I think this is where we get it here. Yeah. And this one as well, I mean, I remember this bathroom there was literally 2 people inside it. I think 2 of our crew members. A lot of everyone else was outside, because we really only had one go at this. Like we because he's essentially shaving his hair off, his entire hair off, and it is real. He's not wearing a wig, and to then shave that off, it's his real hair. I remember there was a real buzz of excitement and kind of nervousness. And I remember
you can even see in his eyes how stressed he is just to do it.
We did have a barber on set as well, like on standby, and was directing him how to do it. But that first one when it went, I mean, throughout it, this is the most nervous I think I've ever been filming anything. Like I had butterflies. I was terrified. And just the way it's edited together, where we see all of the hair coming off, it's brilliant. And we were all worried because we didn't actually know what it'd look like with his head shaved. And I think he suits it.
He does.
And I just want to comment that Charlie's one of the nicest people ever.
I was just going to say.
Completely the opposite to who this character is. Okie dokie. So that is the first 5 episodes done and doosted. Now we're going to jump over onto Limelight, which is the season finale. Came out. It's a very special episode. We were on set a year ago to this very day. A year ago today was our first, when we were getting things set up. Tomorrow was our shoot day a year ago, which we then got locked down on halfway through. And we reshot it in June. And this is the version that we shot in June. When we filmed it in the same location too. And it was the first time we went back to this location after lockdown. All of our stuff was still there because we couldn't get access to it. So it was weird. It was weird being back, and it was like jumping into a time machine. Apart from everyone's hair had grown, and this bus as well was a bloody nightmare because it isn't, obviously it is a real bus, but it's not one that.
It's not a functioning bus.
It's not a functioning bus. It's not a drivable bus.
And I'm literally on that window going like this with my light.
Yeah, and I'm at the other end with some plants.
You are. You're in the window behind with a plant. And it does what you can see it. You can, like, without it, it would look weird.
It does look really good.
So this was, and obviously the way we tricked people into thinking it was moving, not only through the lights, which you can kind of see going across his face, but Rose, our camera operator, was kind of moving slightly and swaying like a bus would. So in this episode, Bruce delivers a 4 or 5 minute long monologue in one take, staring right at the camera. And Harley is because you were the assistant director on this particular one, who was like kind of making sure that everyone was okay and had everything they needed. What was your process to making sure Bruce was comfortable and able?
Whatever we could at the moment, really. Like, he came with his A game like every single take, so we didn't really have to do anything for him. He just came with the same energy every single take, and I think we didn't even linger on it that long because he did such a good job.
Yeah. What's your advice for people who are looking to get into like production assistant runners, assistant direction? What pieces of advice would you give?
Go out there, meet people, get into different groups. There's tons on Facebook. There's loads on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Indeed. Just meet people. It is all about who you know at the end of the day. Like, just put your foot in the door, message anyone. Like, even if they don't see it, worst they can say is no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just do it. That's
one of our mottos at Oxygen, is the worst thing someone can say is no. Is that realistically, a lot of people do want to help. A lot of people do want to make sure something can happen if they can. No one really goes out of the way to say no if they don't know you. And so, be cheeky, be pushy, be persistent, and be proactive. That's a key one. But those are some really, really good tips of where to get contacts and where to meet people. I think once you do meet those people, you'll just be good with them, like you are, Harley. Offering drinks and checking if you can help in any way and just being as charming as possible.
And in a way, it's kind of a blessing, like, that we had to come back to it. Because everything we'd done the first time we had to redo, just because people did look different, even if it was just a little. It made it all the more better that we came back.
I agree.
Just because the performances and everything, like.
Because we did almost just continue, but then we were like, no, we can't do this.
Mm.
And I'm so glad because we had more time. This was a 3-day shoot rather than a 2-day that was planned. And not only that, but a lot of all of the crew and all of the actors hadn't been on set since March. So for what, 6 months? Is that right? 3 months? 3 months. God, I'm dreadful at maths. But and I think it did. It increased the stakes, didn't it? It kind of felt like, oh, this is what we want to do. This is we're back. We're doing it.
This bit, by the way, sorry, I just want to speak on behalf of Devon.
Yeah.
The bit where he's smacking his head, that's celery.
Is it?
Yeah, he's going like breaking the celery.
That's hilarious.
Now that I've said it, you can hear it. And the first, there's a bit when it starts going squelchy, that's the celery. And then the first one, I can't remember what that is, but I think it's like another fruit. There's such a steady progression of ambition. So like Starlight, we introduced one more location, so we have 2, and in this one we have 3.
Yeah.
And it's so like interesting. And we had a big crew on this one as well.
Mm.
And it was finale of the series, but also shooting wise, it was a nice finale because it was like, look how far we've come in this short space of time. I know we had the lockdown, but like in terms of episodes, it's like one series is such a quick turnaround for such like huge progress to be made.
Yeah. And especially when we, in terms of the distribution of this, and Harley, hopefully you can kind of shed a little bit more light onto it, because it was really difficult because we were in such a good position in terms of editing and post-production to then have this moment where we literally could not go into our editing suite or things like that. And you were actually in the house where the rest of the editing and the distribution took place. I mean, what was that like, having to kind of just completely do a 180 and shift to one year?
Like, as terrible as it, like, all this pandemic has been for everyone, the bright side is we were literally locked inside with the footage, and it was at our expense if how long we wanted to work on it, and how much time to dedicate to it. But we had literally nothing else to do. Like, everyone either lost their jobs or got furloughed, so we were like, we were stuck with it, and I think it shows.
What's the feeling? Like, and what is the benefit, and what's it like?
I think an immense sense of pride, for sure, because it's so, even just saying that you've worked on like Amazon Prime originals is such a nice, like, humble brag. Not even humble, it's a nice brag. To say that. It looks good on like if we're talking like technically, it looks good on like a CV, and it makes you look very good. But also it's just nice. It's a nice feeling knowing that, like, I've wanted to make films since I was 11, and I, like, for the longest time had no idea how to start, and then I went to college and studied film and did BFI, and that's how I met you. And it's been like a slow progression, so many highs, but so many lows have just been like, I'm never going to make it in this industry, it's impossible, I don't know how to like make it. And then it's nice I'd like to go back in time to my college self, who thought there was no future for me in film, who thought that I wasn't talented enough, who thought that I wasn't gonna, I was like not as good as other people, and I didn't know anyone. I thought I would never have a future in film. To go back in time and be like, you've got your naming credits on like Amazon Prime originals and many more to come. But it's like, it is a nice like feeling on a personal level as well. Like, not only just like telling everyone, which I do regularly, but also just personally, it makes you feel accomplished in yourself. It's nice to remind yourself, because even now we have lows where we're like, especially in lockdown, when it's like, I have no future, whatever, feeling like, bad about yourself and about your work, and then just reminding yourself that actually we have made some really good stuff that has done really well. And yeah, it's just a nice feeling.
Yeah. Thank you. And Harley, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with everything Eleanor said. Like, it is a nice feather in the hat to have, and yeah, it does feel good that like all the hard work's paid off, and it is very humbling when you finally turn around and say they don't give a shit. So, yeah, peaches and pears.
Yeah, I think, and just to echo what both of you have said, it's especially because our series deals with queer themes that growing up I certainly never saw really prominently. It is something that's like, we're creating stuff that I want to see, that I want to watch,
Yeah,
and it's like, it's just so lovely to know that it is now out there. It is on a platform where people can see it, and people have seen it. People who, from around the world have watched something that we've made. And when we're on set, and I think this goes for everyone watching this, well, you don't really consider the people who are going to be watching it later down the line. You're just there making something that you wanted to make. But the fact that people have found solace, or at least been able to explore some of their emotions and feelings and felt something by watching it, even if they hated it. This is the other thing, is I love it when people hate our stuff, because it shows that they've had an effect. It's had an effect. It's had an impact, and it's made people think. And that's something that, as we go forward, that's something that I think is all we want to do, is make people think. I think is the one.
yeah. It's so nice as well, like, not even from a everything's done point of view, but just it's so nice as someone, and also working with other people who are just so in love with the process. Like, we work because we want to,
Yeah.
not because we have like a boss to please or money to make. Like, it's obviously it's one of them, like, we do it because we'd like to, and we turn up because we want to.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's the best feeling in the world when you can go and do a job that you're obsessed with and that you love, and then have such a nice like end product that you can proudly show people. And not only proudly show people, but also a lot of non-film people don't understand what goes into making a film. And so when you show them a film that has loads of heart and effort in, they might not see it. So being able to say that it's on Amazon Prime in like a lot of people's heads is a lot more like, is very sort of affirming to them, that it's like good. Does that make sense?
It does. I completely agree. And for people watching this who are wanting to get into film, or are kind of in the path of being, again. And for those of you who are watching this, who are wanting to get into film, who are on perhaps a rung of that career ladder, then I guess our advice is just be persistent, be proactive, keep going, keep creating, and involve yourself in sessions like these at the festival. We've got so much more throughout the rest of this month. And if you've missed something from the previous weeks, it's all going to be online, so please do watch it. Okay, well, all that's left for me to say is, Harley, Eleanor, thank you so much for joining me on this Oxygen Roundtable.
Thank you for having us.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we'll be back again here for season 2.
Fingers crossed.
Right, thank you everyone. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your indies, and speak soon.